Was popular for a while. He's crashed and burned pretty quickly.
But now he's in the cabinet. He's Secretary of Defense. Transportation, I think, maybe. He's in Biden's cabinet.
He certainly is. He's very influential in that post.
And he's a smart guy. And when I heard him talking early on, again, I listened to the Democratic primaries a lot. He seemed very articulate, very sort of emotionally stable. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly I hear him make the comment, this nation is under attack from white nationalist terrorism. And there, boom, full stop. There's the PSYOP. Just hang on, push back for a second. A nation under attack from white nationalist terrorism that is 75% white.
Yeah. When people make statements like that, I don't care if they're a politician, a businessman, my buddy, when they make statements like that,
you immediately give them a breathalyzer.
Well, I just think, if you think this, then I'm going to go ahead and put an asterisk by anything that you say.
Exactly. And that's when I dismissed Pete Buttigieg forever as any kind of serious candidate, because I was of the opinion, you are clearly demonstrating that you are a shill for this deconstructive American sabotage agenda that I'm just not down with at all.
Either a shill or uneducated. You don't understand.
And since he went to, I think he went to Harvard undergrad, and I think he went to somewhere else. I mean, I'm a Yale undergrad guy, so it makes sense to me that a Harvard guy would know nothing. But
he's a smart man.
He
absolutely
is. So clearly, and that's the connection your brain makes. Mm-hmm. He is obviously a smart guy. So why is he saying something so ridiculously stupid?
Well, could it be strictly political?
Absolutely it is. But you see this, now we can fast forward to the events of everything since 3 November. And this is going to be a multi-part podcast, I don't think our audience. But there is something very troubling and very alarming going on in our country today. If you want America to continue being the America that we have always essentially loved, that I love now. And again, that isn't my own personal perspective, based on things like the U.S. Constitution, based on the framing of civil liberties, freedom, economic opportunity that I believe this nation is sort of intellectually and spiritually grounded in. Those things are under attack in a very major way. And it is both upsetting and alarming and anxiety producing. I don't sleep nearly as well as I used to. And that's not just because I had shoulder surgery, but that's true too. So as I've tossed and turned with my shoulder healing, I've had time to think about a lot of this. And I have basically, I have a company in California that I run remotely, and we're wrapping that up and trying to find a buyer for it in the meat. So I have much more time on my hands on a day-to-day basis in this particular period of my life. And I have been doing a ton of reading about all this stuff. And then once you really get a coherent frame of reference that allows you to stand outside the PSYOP and just, I listen to the things they say on CNN and MSNBC and just laugh. And you can see the sort of hysterical, slightly manic tone that goes up as our side makes gains. For instance, this election fraud issue is spilling out at a massive rate, started as a trickle. These are the same people who said in November and December, there is no evidence whatsoever of election fraud. Donald Trump is threatening our democracy. It's the reality inversion. It's the 180.
Before we get into that, let's back up just a little bit. We'll get into that. But first, you and I don't differ a whole lot of what we're saying. It's just, to me, it's the impact. You mentioned the definition of a conspiracy. Say that again, please.
It is 2 or more people acting together in concert to think of and then act on an agenda that benefits them at the expense of others.
Okay. You could make a case that my day job, I'm an industrial salesman. Okay. You could make a case that when I want to sell something to somebody, me and the bosses get together on a price, on a production schedule, on availability, on how this is going to impact the customer. I sell the customer. And if we get this deal, the guy he's buying from now is going to be impacted negatively. By your definition, that's a conspiracy.
Absolutely.
but it's a conspiracy that really doesn't affect many people. And in fact, it will not come to fruition unless the product that I sell is better than the stuff that the guy's buying already.
Right. And
I don't
conspiracy is perfectly legal.
I don't disagree with conspiracy theories because we have them. The CIA certainly, that's what they're all about. You mentioned Operation Mockingbird. Thank you. And that's where the CIA attempted to just influence the media.
Well, attempted quite successfully, and is doing so more successfully now than ever.
Oh, okay. Well, yes and no. I mean, you mentioned CNN, MSNBC, the networks. You mentioned Chris Wallace, so that's Fox News. I'm going to take your word for it because they certainly don't influence me because I don't watch them anymore.
Well,
So they don't influence me.
Well, and that's Newton's third law.
And every president that we've had since I've started in the workaday world, which was in 1976, 5. After that, from the time that president took office to the time the next guy took office, I've been better off every single time. And I say that's in spite of what the president did. The president, in my opinion, and government in general, has, with the exception of the Reagan administration, has done so little to impact anything that I do.
Well, that's interesting. I
didn't go to Yale. I'm just on a scale of 1 to 10 when it comes to smarts. I'm a solid 5.
Well, listen, brother, I think that's great. First of all, I'm glad to hear it. But I think what you're referencing is not only your individual initiative, which is one of the great strengths of America. There's never been a country like ours with as much disseminated intelligence, education, affluence, and a born sense of freedom and opportunity
and drive.
That's why they're desperately trying to take us down, because we're the last hill standing. Really, when we go down, the globalists move in, there's nothing left. We are the last coherent, sovereign, national political bloc. And why do you think they attack us? The FBI and the CIA. Now, not all of them. Again, I'm sorry. So many of these things require such background that I'm not trying to red pill your audience too quickly. Mm-hmm. But let's just hypothesize for a moment that there's a division within these agencies. And you can read all about that all the time, that there is a kind of, deep state globalist capture team within these agencies. And then there are the more traditional, patriotic, defending America teams, and they're at war with each other right now. Now, it's impossible for me to name all the players, but you can, by their actions, they shall be known. Just look at the crazy number, as you alluded to earlier, of parallel crises we have, and they're all related. Hypothesize for a moment that the election was massively stolen through an unprecedented 10 to 20-fold increase in mail-out ballots and a completely criminal conspiracy involving collecting those, putting them in mail-in ballots. How was that all enabled? It was all enabled under the screen of a complete social change brought about by the medical and health emergency of COVID-19, which, again, was a radically exaggerated thing that wasn't what it appeared to be, but yet all of the political entities that took full advantage of it, changed their laws. How did they change their laws? An aggressive series of Secretary of State's office in many of the let's just concentrate.
Do you think that COVID-19 is a ruse?
I think it's a real virus, although there's a lot. I could talk for hours on this. There are many, many, many great sources that explain. Here's the thing about COVID-19. Anthony Fauci and the CDC applied for patents on the SARS-2 COVID-19 virus in April of 2018. And then 3 days later, a company called Sequoia Pharmaceutical Holdings, which, spoiler alert, turns out to be Pfizer and Moderna in a proxy holding, filed for the patent for the vaccine for that. This is in 2018. The memorialization of this incredible conspiracy and nefarious action on the part of the American and global medical administration. See, we've all had a whole new unelected tyranny introduced into our lives, led by Anthony Fauci, who is perhaps... I'm just going to say read more about him. He isn't what he seems, and his current medical dictates seem governed by or motivated by anything but the humanitarian application of science and medicine for the help of mankind.
Well, let's talk about Dr. Fauci for just a minute. I am not a fan of his. But when you hear people say, well, the guy's a moron, he doesn't know what he's talking about, I can't listen to you anymore. The guy's a doctor. He's a smart man. However, there's two things about Dr. Fauci that you have to scratch your head about. And this, to me, this is how these conspiracy theories, in air quotes, get started. He's been in this job for how many years?
50 plus. I'm glad you know that.
And I have to think he's got pictures of somebody. In fact, he may have pictures of a whole lot of people, because how in God's name did he keep that job for so long? Number two.
Well, he early on sold out to Big Pharma, did what they want, and it was in that. I mean, I think it's a simple matter in Fauci's case of money.
But, well, I don't disagree with that. The reason I don't like Dr. Fauci is because he is a end justifies the means guy. Go back to the AIDS epidemic.
I wish I knew what the end was. That's what really scares me.
Well, I don't know what the end is.
I hope
for sure.
it's just money. Put it that way. I hope it's just about manipulating on an evil, black-hearted basis the entire world population just to make money. That's the good, bad possibility. The bad possibility is a global depopulation event. Seriously. So it's somewhere between those. Now, to go back to what you said, that's a great point of departure for what I would love our audience to begin to all do. Here's my theory of the case in short. Mm-hmm. We are in an era of elitists and globalists with literally untold amounts of money. They control the printing presses. And all of their sort of adjacent bad acting associates. And that could be everything from the CCP right now, although that might eventually break off, to the global jihadists who are social disruptors, to all of the elite of the elite. They want to form, they want land, they want water, they want to control resources. All of their agenda has been laid out in something called the UN Agenda 2030. The World Economic Forum, led by Klaus Schwab, is one kind of typical, like, over the top, like cliche, evil bunch of people. Those, let's just call them the globalists. And they're fighting against we, the populace. Now, how that translates in American politics is the globalists have a ton of money and they buy off everybody. I don't often quote the Bible, but 1 Timothy 6:10, for the love of money is the root of all evil, and that's what's happening. This enormous accumulation of wealth in the top 1% that's happened over the last 20 years.
Well, that's true.
It's more so than in the past. It really is.
It absolutely is. However, if you look at the lower 50%, the lower 20% in this country, I'm not talking about Pakistan, okay? But in this country, everybody has it good in this country. Well, absolutely everybody.
Hang on, I'm not sure how that really...
If everything's relative.
But okay. Why are we comparing ourselves to Sri Lanka? I mean, we don't have their national history. We don't have their cultural, orientation. We made different choices for a long time. So I don't think it really...
Well, one of the biggest, you mentioned that, but one of the big differences between us and all those other countries is our government. The way our government is run. We don't have a king. We're not a democracy. We're something in between. We're a representative republic. And for over 200 years, it's worked really well. Now, is it perfect? No. Is it good? Yeah. And I base that on how a guy like me, who's nothing special, has done pretty well. And I think anybody listening to the sound of our voices on this podcast would have to think that, you know what? Things are pretty good for me.
Don't disagree. So what you're pointing out is that we have an intrinsic culture and nation of freedoms, and those freedoms have led to a lot of prosperity and excellent outcomes for many people.
Exactly.
Don't disagree at all.
Exactly.
But now let's go back to but now many people in history, and this is where being a historian helps. Many people in history, maybe not everyone like the United States, have been in positions of security in the past and then have had everything yanked out from under them. 30s Germany, maybe not the best example